Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Jeff Winkle, and I am your instructor for this Humanities 212 Classical Mythology online course. And I wanted just to take a few minutes to do some course overview, talk a little bit about the course itself, talk about expectations, course text, and a brief walk through the syllabus just to get you on a good footing before you jump into the course material. So I want to start with just a little bit about myself. My name is, like I said, I'm Dr. Jeff Winkle. I've been a professor here at Grand Rapids Community College for the last 6 or 7 years, and I'm in the humanities department. My background is actually squarely in the topic of this course, ancient mythology. So I received my doctorate in what in academics we call classics, which is basically anything having to do with the ancient Greeks and Romans, be it archaeology, history, philosophy, art, architecture, and of course mythology, religion. And those last two, mythology and religion, happen to be my own subspecialties within that field. So this is a discipline I love, a topic that I love, and I love teaching it. I love sharing my passion about mythology, and I hope you find that contagious along the way. So you'll find that I'm a very visual learner. I have always been, and so in my lectures that you'll watch, I try to use a lot of archaeology to kind of bring us as close as we can to kind of walking through these places where these stories came from. I've done a lot of traveling myself in Italy and in Greece, and ideally for this course, I would jet us all over to Athens. But of course, that's not possible. But I'll do the best I can to kind of put us on the ground, as it were. And I think there's something really nice about that kind of that tangible, tactile quantity of kind of physical remains that really brings this stuff alive. So this class is what we call an asynchronous course. So that means that we will not be having scheduled times where we'll be meeting like on Zoom or Google Meets or anything like that. What you'll find is as you get into the weekly assignments, you'll find that each week, each of the 7 weeks will have its own folder. And what I'm asking you to do, what I'm expecting you to do is to complete the work of that folder by the end of that week. And so at midnight or 11:59, I should say, on Sunday night, the folder for the next week will open up with a new set of tasks for you to do. And it's up to you how you go about doing that. You'll find in each folder I have kind of a suggested approach. You might want to do this on Monday, do this on Wednesday, and the like. And I think the more that you can split it up, I know everybody's busy. I'm sure most of you are working, and so you fit this in where you can. I get it. But I think the more that you can kind of do a little bit at a time, the more you're gonna get out of this course. I don't know if you've had this, but if you binge watch a show, it's addicting. But I often find that a little bit later I don't remember it all that well because I just kind of I inhaled it, as it were. And I think that same principle applies here. So the more that you can kind of break it up, I think the more you'll get out of this. But yeah, asynchronous course, and it's kind of up to you to complete the tasks as given. And so again, if you're new to online learning, or if you're new to a half semester, like a 7-week course, it comes with particular challenges. And I think with online learning, particularly an asynchronous course, the burden really is on you. It can be great if you're a self-starter, if you're self-motivated, if you're organized, you can kind of stay on top of this stuff. A class like this can be great. But this is not going to be a course where I'm going to be bugging you, did you get it done, or sending you constant reminders. This really is kind of the onus of getting this stuff done and working through it is on you. And if you're, like I said, if you're a self-starter and if you're interested, if you're motivated, this kind of course can be great. But if you struggle with that, it can be very easy to get behind. And so I'll I'll do my best to help you guys along the way. And I'm very available. Just shoot me an email with any kind of questions if things aren't working or if you need something clarified. Of course, let me know. But this is a class that really kind of runs according to your schedule. And so there are some of the challenges and advantages therein. I've ordered these two texts for the course. Let me get my little pointer here. Classical Myth by Barry Powell. This one will be kind of our main kind of anchor text, and it will be using kind of throughout the 7 weeks. It's a very good book. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There are some things where Mr. Powell and I disagree on things, but of course, that's the nature of the beast. Now, I'll try to highlight when those things come where they're pertinent to the information of the course. But this is a very good source text for a grounding in the knowledge of classical myth. Now, I should say, when we talk about classical, that word, again, it talks about kind of anything having to do with the ancient Greeks and Romans. Our class will be overwhelmingly looking at Greek mythology, although often those Greek stories will come through Roman sources, as it were. And with maybe we'll dip our feet into the pools of maybe some other kind of Mediterranean mythologies, Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Egyptian, Roman, but along the way. But we'll be primarily looking at Greek myths. So the sooner that you can pick up this book, the better off you're going to be. I think there are readings right off from this. You can find it at the Grand Rapids Community College bookstore. You can also find this very easily online, places like Amazon, and I look for used editions. And I'm not all that fussy too. If you don't have to get the latest and newest edition of the Powell text. I'm very much in favor of students saving money. I know that textbook costs are ridiculous. And so if you find an earlier edition of this Powell text, I say go for it. It's not going to make that much difference. I mean, sometimes maybe the page numbers I assign will be slightly off, but usually the changes from edition to edition aren't that great. If you can get something fairly recent, I think that's better. And if you can swing the newest edition, of course, go for it. But save yourself some money. And then the other text I've ordered that I'm asking you to purchase is this translation of Homer's Odyssey by Stanley Lombardo here. And I know that I'm sure many of you have probably maybe tackled the Odyssey before. Again, no worries if you haven't. This course assumes no knowledge. But maybe you read the Odyssey in 9th or 10th grade, and you maybe have an old copy, a translation laying around, and you're thinking to yourself, do I really want to buy another one? I'm sympathetic to that as well. Again, if you don't want to buy, if you already have an English translation of Homer's Odyssey, the original, of course, was composed in ancient Greek, and we'll actually be doing a little bit of ancient Greek along the way. There's dozens of English translations of Homer's Odysseys. In my opinion, some of them are very good, some of them are not so good. But again, if you want to hang on to your copy, if you have one, that's fine. If you can, please do purchase this one. One, because it's the text I'll be referring to in lectures, and if I'm quoting from it for on quizzes or whatever, this is the text I'll be using. That's just one kind of practical reason. And secondly, it's a really good translation. Lombardo is one of these guys that can stay very close to the Greek, but also translate it in a way that's very readable, very digestible, very novelistic in the well. So this is a very gripping, very easy to read translation of Homer's Odyssey. So grab it if you can. All right, let's take a look at the syllabus. So if you go on the Blackboard website, which if you're watching this you already have, you'll find on the left-hand left-hand link side, you'll find a link for the syllabus, and you'll find this document here. At the top, there's my name, Dr. Jeff Winkle. I have office hours listed here. I don't know how often I'm actually going to be in my office. I mean, I would love to meet you if you want to talk about something. We can set something up. Just send me an email. It's my address here. And one of the things I don't like about online learning is that I very rarely get to meet any of you in person. So please, if you want to talk about a paper or a test, whatever, just shoot me an email and we can set up a meeting at my office. Course information, like I said, the vast majority of what we're going to be looking at are going to be Greek myths. And the reason for that is certainly, all of these other, cultures and their mythologies, the Romans, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, spread it around the world. They're all wonderful and they're all important. But in terms of kind of influence on Western society and the longest lasting effects of influence, I got to hand it to the Greeks. And so we're going to go with them. Even things I'm sure many of you have read things like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. Both of those very significant kind of modern collections of mythology are deeply indebted to the ancient Greeks. In Percy Jackson's case, very, very directly and the like. And so this is the source material. So we'll be looking at mythology through lots of different lenses: literature, theology, archaeology, history, philosophy, epic poetry, tragedy, comedy, modern prose. I'll be asking you to watch a film. I'll say more about that in just a second. You can have a look at the learning outcomes for yourself. There are the two texts that I just mentioned in the PowerPoint. I will be asking you to read a few other things as well, but they will be Word documents and PDFs that you can find on the Course Blackboard site in their relevant folders. This is the kind of the grading breakdown. The course itself is worth 1,000 possible points. Your attendance and participation worth 200 points. And I grade a kind of attendance based on kind of how timely you're doing the quizzes and how timely you are responding to the forum responses. Are you getting the work done weekly, or are you kind of scrambling to catch up? And so those are those points. Reading quizzes. For most of the readings, I'll be asking you to take again, an online reading quiz. These are timed and usually kind of 10 questions, and I'll give you 15 to 20 minutes to complete them. And these are multiple choice quizzes on the readings. And I think you'll find that I'm not out to trick you. I think you'll find them fairly simple. This is just to kind of keep you honest, test your basic comprehension of the readings from week to week, from subject to subject. And I time them just to kind of give you an extra nudge to do the reading well. I want to prevent just people opening up a quiz and doing frantic book flipping to find answers. This is just a little nudge for you to do the readings and do them well and keep you honest along those lines. So once you take one of these quizzes, it should show you. I think I have it set up. It'll show you which ones you got wrong. It won't tell you the right answer. And if you want to take it a second time, you can. Just know that the software will average your 2 scores. Obviously, if you take it once and you ace it, there's no need to take it again, and they'll send that grade into the Blackboard gradebook. There'll be one formal paper, which will be due at the end of the 7 weeks. I think I introduced that in the 3rd week of class, so I'll let it speak for itself then. There is no midterm, but there will be a take-home final exam, which will be essay-based. I'll ask you to write on 2 or 3 essays, to type them up and submit them. More on that later. And then I'll have a few of these forums that ask you to write a couple of paragraphs in response to kind of what I call kind of a big idea question. There's one, you'll see there's one in this first week at the end, and those will be collectively worth about 150 points. So my grading scale is such here. 950 points to 1,000 points, it equals an A. I've heard from students that maybe that's a little bit more demanding than other classes. Some people have 930 or 93%, 200 being an A. I don't think you'll find that I'm a particular harsh grader, but my standard for an A might be a little bit higher. I think that a straight A should be reflective of kind of work that's over and above, that goes beyond kind of regurgitating class material, as it were. But I think you'll find that I'm a very fair grader and not too stringent along the way. I'm going to leave this. I don't want to read all of this. You're adults. You can read this for yourself. This kind of goes through how I go about grading your participation points in terms of responding to forums. Here's our course schedule through the first week. So this week we're going to be talking about what do we mean by mythology. We'll look at some creation stories that the Greeks told. We'll start looking along the way, each week specifically at particular gods and goddesses. Zeus and Hera are up this week. And then weeks 2, 3, and 4 will be kind of centered around our reading of Homer's Odyssey. We're going to read that epic in its entirety. And you can look at Athena, Hades in the underworld, Apollo and Artemis, Hermes, Aphrodite, Ares along the way. And then when we're done with the Odyssey, I'm going to ask you to watch this wonderful film, which came out in the year 2000 by the Coen brothers, called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Maybe some of you have seen it. It's a wonderful film, but it's a retelling of Homer's Odyssey, but it takes place in the American South in the 1930s, and it stars George Clooney as the Ulysses, Odysseus figure. And it's a great film to watch anyway, but it's a particularly wonderful film to watch after having just read and talked about the Odyssey. And then in the last half of the course, we'll be looking at how did mythology function as religion for the ancient Greeks? We'll be reading some Greek tragedies. One of the wonderful firsts that came out of the ancient Greek world in the Western tradition was theater. For all intents and purposes, the Greeks invented theater as we know it, and the vast majority of their tragedies that survive come from this catalog of mythology. It was one of the ways that the Greeks told their stories to their own culture. And so we'll be reading a few Greek tragedies, and then we'll end with a bang, with kind of a greatest hits of Greek heroes: Perseus, Heracles, Hercules is his Roman name. That's usually how people know that hero. Same guy, Theseus and Jason, and then we'll wrap it up with the final exam and the final papers. All right, so then we have policies and kind of this boilerplate that that every syllabus has. You can look at it for yourself and take advantage of it as you need to. All right, so that's all I got for now. Let me know if you have questions, but get the books as quickly as you can. Jump into week 1 and have at it. And if you have questions and you have issues, don't hesitate to let me know.